Welcome back to the Rhythm of Money. This episode is for the woman who sometimes feels like she's running on empty. Maybe not every day, maybe not all the time, but often enough that if you're honest, you know what I mean. You've been pouring out energy for a long time, into people, into work, into responsibilities, into keeping things going. And yet you may not feel like you're seeing the fruit of all that energy in your own life. Today, we're going to begin shifting that. Now, if this is your first time here, this show is built as a progression. Each episode builds on the one before it. So if something today feels like it's referring back to something you missed, it probably is. Episodes 1 and 2 are there for you when you're ready. But before we go further today, I want to check in on something from last time. In episode 2, I gave you the reset, a pause, a breath, a quick body scan. And I asked you to try it in one ordinary place in your life, just once, anywhere it might fit. For some of you, it may have done something noticeable. Not dramatic necessarily, but real. The way even a small thing can shift something when it lands at the right moment. But I also know some of you may have tried it and thought, that's it? That's what we're working with? And I want to speak to that because that response is not nothing. If the reset felt too small for what you're carrying around money, that doesn't mean the tool is inadequate. It may simply mean there's more weight there than you realized. And where that weight is coming from, that's what today is about. Not how to fix it, not all today, not how to push it down. Just where it may be coming from. In episode 1, we talked about the invisible vow, that quiet inherited belief that goodness and financial security don't quite belong together, that wanting more for yourself somehow means something's wrong with you. But that kind of belief doesn't just stay abstract. It has to go somewhere. It takes a shape in a life. There's a feeling that often lives underneath this pattern. Most women who carry it have felt it at some point and then quickly pushed it away because it didn't fit who they were trying to be. We're going to name that feeling today. But before we name it, I want to show you the pattern itself. That way you can recognize the shape of it in your own life before we put language around what may be underneath it. For many women I've talked with over the years, the pattern takes this shape. She becomes the one who gives. Not the one who gives sometimes, not the one who gives when she can, the one who gives as the basic structure of how she moves through the world, giving as an identity, giving as the quiet, unspoken condition for belonging, giving as the proof she offers again and again that she is worth keeping around. And before I say anything else, I want to be very clear. Giving is not the problem. Generosity is not the problem. The women I've worked with who carry this pattern are often some of the most loving people I have ever known. Their families, their workplaces, their communities, they are blessed by their presence. The world has been shaped by women like these, whether it remembers to thank them or not. The problem is not giving. The problem is when giving becomes the only direction energy is allowed to flow. Because money in a healthy life is meant to move in two directions, in and out, like breath, give and receive. Both movements are part of the same flow. But when the receiving side gets cut off, when receiving starts to feel like greed or asking starts to feel like weakness, the flow begins to break down. And what looks on the surface like generosity can start to carry something else underneath. A little exhaustion, a little depletion, and sometimes quietly something she may never have allowed herself to call by its right name. Resentment. I want to stay with that word for a moment because most women who carry this pattern do not want to use that word. It doesn't fit who they're trying to be. So the feeling flickers up and then they push it away. They tell themselves they're being ungrateful or petty or selfish. And then they get away from the thought as quickly as possible. And the giving continues. But here's what I know about resentment in a financial life. When it isn't allowed to be named, it doesn't disappear. It just goes underground. It shows up as a tightening when the phone rings and you see a certain name on the caller ID. It shows up as a small drop in the stomach when a particular topic comes up. It shows up as being remarkably generous with a stranger or a cause or someone you barely know, and somehow not being able to feel the edge of your own limit with the person right in front of you who you see every day. It can also show up as spending money on yourself in a way that feels a little rushed, a little frantic, a little guilty. The splurge that doesn't quite feel like self-care, more like a small rebellion no one can argue with. Because that kind of receiving doesn't require asking anyone for anything. I've seen all of that. And I felt versions of it in my own life too. So let me walk you through what this pattern can look like in the flow of ordinary life. Not to assign blame or to build a case against anyone, just to make the invisible visible. We're going to name what may have been happening without a name for a very long time. It may be the money loaned to a friend or family member that somewhere underneath both of you knew was probably not coming back. You may have known it when you transferred it or wrote the check or handed it over, and you told yourself it was fine. It was a gift, really. It was love. But some small part of you registered the transaction. Some small part quietly wrote it down somewhere you didn't quite let yourself look at. It may be the bills paid for adult children that were supposed to be temporary and then somehow stopped being temporary years ago because you loved them so much that their discomfort became your emergency. And so the retirement contribution waited again because the emergency was right in front of you and retirement was somewhere out ahead. It may be the gifts you gave when you really couldn't afford them. Not gifts that stretched you a little, gifts that set you back. Gifts that went on the card, and then the card carried that decision forward for months, maybe years. It may be the help that turned into an expectation, the favor that quietly became a standing arrangement. Something you said yes to once out of real care, and then found you couldn't say no to again. Because explaining yourself felt harder than continuing. Because disappointing someone, even a little, felt like failure. It may be the times you said, "Don't worry about it," when you actually were worried about it. If you're self-employed, maybe it's that late payment on an invoice that you allowed without saying anything. The bill you sent for less than the actual hours worked because the full number felt like too much to ask for. The discount you gave because the client seemed like they were struggling or hedging, or because you liked them, or because asking for the full amount felt uncomfortable, or because getting a no felt like it would sting too much. It's the extra work you did and never mentioned when it came time to settle up. And then there are the things you didn't do for yourself. The medical appointment you put off because it didn't seem urgent enough, or because you would have needed a ride home and you didn't want to ask and inconvenience anyone. The car that needed attention for months before you finally handled it. The glasses, the dental work, the thing you passed over not because you truly couldn't have made it work, but because it was for you. And for you, always seemed to fall further down the list than whatever was for someone else. And the retirement contributions. I want to say that one for a moment. The retirement contributions you skipped. Not once, not twice, repeatedly over years, because there was always something more urgent. And the urgent thing was almost never for you. When you lay all of this out in a line, the shape becomes very clear. Out, 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 and very rarely in. So here's the question I want to place gently in front of you. Not for you to answer quickly or to defend against, just to let it sit there for a while. If receiving feels wrong to you, where did that come from? Because no one is born believing that filling her own cup is selfish. No one arrives into life already knowing she's supposed to be the one who gives and gives and gives, but does not let the goodness come back in. That was taught somewhere. Maybe by a parent's example, so consistent it became the water you swam in. Maybe by a culture's expectations for someone like you. Maybe by a religion that elevated sacrifice while quietly casting a suspicious eye towards comfort or ease or accumulation. Maybe by a relationship where one person's needs filled all the available space, so somewhere along the way you stopped having needs that needed space. We're not going to answer all of that right now, but I do want you to carry the question loosely, like a small stone in your pocket, just aware that it's there. Because what I've seen over and over is that women begin to shift this pattern when they can trace it back to something. Now, this is not to assign blame. It's just to see that it had a source, that it was not the truth about them. It was a teaching. And teachings can be reconsidered. Now, let's slow down. Some of what we've covered may have landed hard. Some of it may have landed with a heavy kind of recognition, the feeling of something you have half known for years, but never said to yourself in full. So now we're going to give that some room. The next part of this episode is not about fixing or forcing insight. It's simply a gentle process of understanding. If you're driving right now, keep most of your attention on the road. Let the next few minutes be a soft background. Your body can still receive this even with your eyes open and forward. For everyone else, let your gaze soften, or close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw release if it's holding. Let your breath find its own depth. No forcing, no performing, just breathing. Notice the ground beneath you, the floor under your feet, the chair holding your body. Whatever is steady and supporting you right now, something is holding you. It has been holding you this whole time. Now I want to invite one specific moment to come to mind. Don't reach for the whole pattern, not the years of it, just one specific time in your early life that money came up. And when you recall it, the memory feels heavy. Maybe even a little scary, or like there's a dark cloud around it. I once worked on this with someone who remembered a parent repeatedly saying that relaxing was lazy. That same parent had an obvious contempt for people who lived with abundance or ease, And decades later, this person was still working very, very hard, still financially vulnerable, and still not understanding why it never felt like enough. Let it be specific. A person maybe, or an interaction, or maybe this is something you witnessed, or something you were told, something you overheard being told to someone else, or simply the feeling of a situation that stayed with you. So just see what comes up. Maybe it is something you saw or were told, or something you were praised for or criticized for. Something that taught you quietly to be less of one thing and more of another, because that was what seemed to get love. Now, notice what you feel around that memory. Not what you think about it, what you feel. Is there something there that might be sadness, a grief almost for what you did without, or what you gave away, or what you didn't allow yourself to receive when you actually needed to receive it? And underneath that sadness, is there something that might be tired? Quietly, honestly, tired. The tiredness of someone who has been holding things together for a very long time. Someone who may not have had language for that. Someone who may not have been entirely sure she was allowed to say so. Let it be there. You don't have to do anything with it. And now I want you to notice something else near that tiredness. There's probably somewhere something that might be love, real love, the actual reason some of the giving happened. It's not only obligation or fear or guilt. There's some real care, the part of you that genuinely wanted to help, the part of you that felt something real for the person in front of you. And it is possible for both things to be true, the love and the cost, the generosity and the exhaustion, the choice and the way it was not entirely free. You do not have to sort out which one was the real one. They were both real. Now, I want to offer you something. The fact that you have given this much is not a problem to be solved. It is evidence of a capacity many people do not have, the capacity to feel someone else's discomfort as real, the capacity to want to do something about it, the capacity to prioritize another person's need even when it costs you, the capacity for love that actually gives something up. That is not a small thing. So I am not asking you to become someone different, not harder, not colder, not more guarded, not less loving. Only to let the flow go both ways. Because giving and receiving are not two separate things. They are one thing. They are the same ocean breathing. And you may have been standing at the shore for a long time watching the water go out, but you are allowed to let the tide come back in. You are allowed to receive. You are allowed to have what you need, even what you sincerely want, that supports your life as you wish to live it. not as a reward for all the giving, not because you have finally done enough to deserve it, just because the flow was always supposed to move both ways. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. That is its nature. That is natural balance in the rhythm of life. Just stay with that for a moment. Notice your breath. What's it doing right now? Notice that while we've been talking today, no one has asked you to change anything. No one has given you a list. No one has told you to go fix the pattern by next week. The only thing being offered here is the chance to see something clearly. Something many women look away from for most of their lives. And that by looking by itself is the work right now in this safe space. When you're ready, take a deeper breath. Let your eyes open if they were closed. Come fully back to where you are, this particular place, this particular moment at this point in time, at this point in your life. Let yourself reorient. Notice the room or the walk or the car, wherever you are. Now, I'm not going to give you a new practice this week. I'm not going to add something else to the pile. But I do want to help you carry this into your life this week, to integrate it so that it can become something that you can usefully build on. So here's the only ask. This week, when you notice yourself about to give something, whether it's your time or just your attention or your money, some form of your energy, you don't have to stop, and you definitely don't have to say no or change anything. But before it moves, quietly ask yourself one question. Is this coming from the part of me that wants to give, or the part of me that doesn't know how not to? You don't have to say anything out loud. You don't have to act on the answer. Just let yourself know which one it is. That quiet knowing, accumulated over time, is how a pattern begins to be seen clearly enough to shift. Not by being forced, not by being judged, but by being witnessed again and again by someone steady enough to finally look. And I hope that is you in this moment. If there is a woman in your life who you wish could hear this, you may want to share this episode with her. Offering her a gentle doorway into this pattern may be a real kindness for her and for this show. In the next episode, we're going to look at a pattern that can feel very responsible, very productive, and even very smart, while quietly keeping you stuck. We'll talk about the difference between actually preparing and endlessly getting ready to be ready. And always remember, a life that abundantly sustains you is a life that can keep giving. Isn't that what you choose to create? This is the rhythm of money. And you are living your true note in this very moment.